So, hello everyone. Thanks for joining our ML with Python workshop series. Total six workshops we have planned, and this is the fifth out of all. So, we have started off with Python basics and data analysis, data visualization. We have taught in second workshop. Third workshop, we have taught linear regression, and fourth workshop, which was happened last week, we have covered logistic regression, and today we are going to touch upon unsupervised learning technique, that is clustering. So, a speaker for today is Mr. Surya Tej from SmartBit, which is an edtech company of IBM. So, he was the one who has delivered logistic regression for us last week, the same speaker. So, without any delay, let me hand over mic to Surya. Surya, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Iktesh. So, hope we have already gone across supervised learning. Hope you are all there on in that session. So today we are going to come across unsupervised learning. In that we are going to discuss about k-means clustering. Okay. So before going to unsupervised learning, first a small quick recap of what is supervised, so that we can use that info on what is unsupervised learning. So supervised learning is something where you use labeled data. Okay, for the prediction you use the labeled data. Each and every data, each and every record is labeled. Okay, so you know what to predict in that. So in supervised learning you know what to predict. Okay, so prediction is the examples of supervised, as we have already gone across, are something like uh, we have seen is in the previous logistic regression. Okay, so we have seen whether he is going a person is going to purchase an item or not based on some of the features. Okay, so there was a specific prediction parameter, okay, in supervised learning. But when it comes to unsupervised, okay, in unsupervised learning you don't have anything to be predicted. Unsupervised learning, you
Surya,
don't have.
Surya, sorry to cut you. Your voice is echoing. Maybe your mic is very closer to your mouth. Just check.
Am I audible now? Is it clear?
Yeah, this is pretty good.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah. So when it comes to unsupervised learning, you don't have any output to be predicted. Okay. So here we just find the group of data points which are having similar features. In unsupervised learning, you don't have anything to be predicted. Based on the similarities of the features, we have to cluster the features. Okay, features are nothing but your parameters. Okay, so here the best example for that is, one of the examples is a social network, your Facebook ads. Okay, so based on the features, like depending on the age or depending on the gender, or depending on your uh, something like your likes, based on that you'll be formed into clusters, and to that particular cluster a specific ad related to them will be sent. Okay, so you all know that all the ads which are being sent to the users will not be same. So based on their features, based on their uh, different features, they'll be sending these ads. So the main goal is to form clusters in unsupervised learning. So I'll just share the screen once. Just a moment. Okay, so hope all of you are able to see the screen. So in unsupervised learning, you don't have any output to be predicted. Based on some features, we need to form clusters. Okay, so that's why it is called, the word itself says unsupervised. Okay, we are not supervising it based on any labels. That's why it is called unsupervised. When it comes to supervised, we are having a specific prediction, the output column, okay, which we are supervising, our which is being supervised. Okay, that's why it is called supervised learning. So in unsupervised learning, one of the techniques which are going to come across, one of the algorithms which are going to come across is k-means clustering. Okay, so we're going to see how this k-means clustering is going to work. Okay, and we're going to form the clusters based on the similarities of the features. We're going to form these clusters, and we're going to visualize those clusters. Okay, so just before going into our actual programming part of it, first we'll see how this total algorithm works. Okay, hope all of you are clear, guys. Just if you have any queries, just ping on the chats once. Hope everything is clear, the voice is clear, and I think the screen is also visible to all of you. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, thank you. So yeah, coming to this k-means clustering. Okay, so here we are having the word k. Okay, we'll come across that word. We're going to see that what the k represents. Okay, and we'll see that's what the term itself says. The word itself says unsupervised. Here the clustering comes into picture. Okay, yeah. So in k-means clustering, okay, or when you perform k-means clustering, what happens? Okay, suppose this is a small data set which you have plotted using a scatter plot. Okay, so these are the data points which were being plotted between some x parameters and y, some x1 parameter and x2 parameter. Remember that you don't have any output here, so both are some parameters itself. It is not like one input and one output. Some x1 feature, some x2 feature. Okay, along with these two features, plot is being scatter plot is being drawn. Okay, so once you perform k-means clustering on it based on the similarities of the features, okay, so these type of clusters will be formed. Okay, now there might be multiple number of questions. So how only three clusters? Why not four? Why not five? Okay, so everything will be going to come across this. Okay, so this would be the final output, guys. So where you'll be having some data based on the similarities, we'll be getting these clustered features. Okay, or clustered output. Okay, in simple terms we can also say it like this. Okay, so once you perform unsupervised learning technique on any data set, you'll be getting a classification data set. Can I say that or not? See here we are having x1 x2 are features. Okay, some x1 and x2 features. These are the some scatter plot between x1 and x2. So when I do k-means clustering, you can see here these all belongs to category 1, these all belongs to category 2, these all belongs to category 3. So we can just label them. We are just labeling it, right, after unsupervised learning. So we are finally getting the labeled output. Okay, that is nothing but a classification data set. So for these particular red points, the output is red. For these particular blue points, output is blue, something like that. So for an example sake, for these green points, output is green. For all these points, the output is green. Okay, so when you perform unsupervised learning on a data set, you'll be getting you'll be getting the labels of that data set. We can also call it as clusters. Okay, yeah. So first we'll come across this how this whole process will be is performed. Okay, so there are multiple steps involved in this k-means clustering. So we'll be going it in a step-by-step way. Okay, so it will be quite interesting as we have done multiple visualizations to make you understand. Okay, so we'll just go it in a step-by-step manner. So first I'll just give you all the steps which are there, and after that I'll just take each and every step and explain you what that step means. So first of all, the first step is choosing the number of k of clusters. Now here the letter k represents how many clusters going to get. Okay, k represents number of clusters. In k means clustering, k represents number of clusters. Step number 2, select at random k points. K represents number of clusters. Select random k points, the centroids, not necessarily from the data set. So you'll be able to understand this. So as of now, just to show you the steps, I'm just giving you these. Okay, select at random k points, the centroids, not necessarily from the data set. Assign each data point to the closest centroid that from k clusters. Assign each data point to the closest centroid that from the k clusters. Compute and place the new centroid of each cluster. Reassign each data point to the new closest centroid. If any reassignment took place, go to step number 4. Otherwise, go to final, which is nothing but final mode. Okay. I know it may not be clear enough when you see these steps at once. Okay, so that's the reason we'll be going it in step in detail about on each and every step. Okay, so if you want, you can just take a note of these steps. So first one, choose a number of KF clusters, selecting at random K points, not necessarily the centroids, not necessarily from the data set. Assign each data point to the closest centroid that form K clusters. Compute and place the new centroid of each cluster. Reassign each data point to the new closest centroid. If any reassignment took place, go to step number 4, otherwise go to final. So which is nothing but your model is ready. Okay. So yeah. So coming to step number 1, so just consider this is x1 feature, x2 feature. We have just plotted a scatter plot between this x1 and x2. You all know that scatter plot will be just giving the intersection points of this x1, x2. So if you're having a point in x1, the point will be to x2. The intersection points of x1 and x2. Okay. So as of now, for this example sake, first I'm just taking an example in this case as k equal to 2. Though there is an explanation how to get the k value. Okay. So first we'll assume that k equal to 2. Okay. So choose a number of k of clusters. So I've just considered it as k equal to 2. Okay. K equal to represents, that means we are going to form two clusters for the given data set. Okay, what are the data set you are having? We are going to get two clusters. So we need to find those where that cluster comes, where those two cluster comes. The first step is choosing the number of k of clusters where k equal to 2. Okay. Now once I have chosen the k of clusters, the next step, select at random k points the centroids not necessarily from the data set. Okay, select random k points, centroids, not necessarily from the dataset. So what we have to do is we have to select two random points. Okay, those points need not be there in the dataset. That is this or this. It is not mandate that the point should be from the dataset. You can select any two random k points at this instance. Okay, so I've just selected two random points. Why I've selected only two? Because we have considered k of clusters equal to 2. Okay, that's the reason. We just place two random k points. Now if it is k of clusters is suppose if you have assumed k equal to 3, then you have to place three random points. So since we have used k equal to 2, I've just placed two random centroids. Okay, these points I'm going to call it as centroids, the blue one and the red one. Okay, the second step is done. Okay, hope it is clear. Third step, assign each data point to the closest centroid. So this is centroid, right? This is red one is centroid, blue one is centroid. What we have to do? Assign each data point to the closest centroid. Now we are having these many data points, right? Okay, so we have to assign these data points to their respective, to their closest centroid. Now, how can you obviously find whether a point is far away or nearer to it? Obviously, by calculating distance. So, in the algorithm, obviously, the distance calculation happens. So, distance calculation between this red, suppose if we take this red centroid first initially. So, from this point to this red centroid. So, obviously, this point is nearer to red. If this point is far away from blue. So, this point belongs to red category. Okay, assign each data point to the closest centroid. So obviously, so we have to check which data point is nearer to which centroid, and we have to assign it to that respective centroid. Now, in general, actually, in the algorithm, the distance calculation happens from the centroid to all the data points. Okay, but for our understanding, to proceed into to proceed this whole process of it, okay, I'm just using a small geometric theorem which says that when you draw a line between 2 points, okay, and when a perpendicular line is going across that line from the center of that line, what are the line which is being drawn from to this center? When a perpendicular line goes in between that midpoint of that intersection of these 2 points, whenever you draw a line, if you take any point on this line, if you take any point on this line, this point will be equidistant from here to here and here to here. Okay, in geometry there is a small theorem. Okay, so when you draw a perpendicular line which is passing exactly between 2 points, that the points which are there on that perpendicular line will be equidistant from here to here. From here to here, it will be having same distance. From here to here also, it is having same distance. Now, it is quite obvious that what are the points which are lying to the left side of this line will be nearer to this blue category, and what are the points which are lying to this right side of this line will be nearer to that category. Okay, hope it is clear. This point, this the represent graphic, the geometrical representation I have given, the lines and all, is just for our understanding. But actually, in the algorithm, the distance between the points will be taken. Okay, so from the centroid to this point, from here to here, from here to here, and finally, it will just find which points are nearer to red, which points are nearer to blue. Just let me know, guys, whether all of you did you understand this one or not on the chats once. Is this point clear till here on the chats? Okay. See, it's nothing but okay. When I say which point is nearer to red, which point is nearer to blue. When I say this point, is it nearer to blue or red? It is obviously nearer to blue. How you're going to say that? When you calculate the distance, you'll be able to know it. Okay. So if you take this point is nearer to red. How you're going to say that? Obviously by calculating distance. If you calculate the distance from here to here, it will be more. Okay, so that's the reason. So we cannot keep on calculating distance for more points, right? So that's what I've just used some kind of a theorem to identify which point is nearer to what. Okay, so once we get these distances done, okay, once we got to know which point is nearer to which centroid, okay, we'll just assign those respective, we'll assign those points as blue and red categories. Okay, so this is a step which is done. Okay, now once we got these points separated, once we got this data points clustered as blue and red. Okay, so now I'm not saying that these are the final clusters, there's much more to be done. Okay, we have to find the next step. Coming to this next step, compute and place the new centroid of each cluster. So when I say centroid, actually in terms, the mathematical term centroid, it should be the center of mass for these points. Okay, so for you to clearly understand, if you want to find the center of this particular blue category or particular of this red category, you can just use it and you can just do it in such a way. If you just project all these blue points onto y-axis, okay, if you just project all these blue points onto y-axis, okay, so and if you just find the center of these points, if you just find the center of these points, that center point will be the new centroid. Okay, so compute and place a new centroid of each cluster. So centroid is nothing but the center of mass for all these points. Okay, so how you're going to find that? If you take these red categories, so I'll just project all these points into y-axis. Okay, I'll just take the center of those. If you just take the average of those points, that point which is there, if you just project it onto the same two-dimensional space, that point is nothing but your centroid. So compute and place the new centroid of each cluster. Okay, so now you can see here, this is the new cluster which has been formed, and this is the new cluster which is being formed. Okay, new cluster, new cluster. Okay, so once the clusters are being formed, okay, now whenever you change the position of the centroid, obviously the distance from that centroid to the data points will obviously change. It's quite obvious. Okay, so reassign each data point to the new centroid. Now once there is a change in your centroid position, obviously the distance from the point data point to the centroid changes. Now what you have to do is, again we have to find out, is there any reassigning taking place or not. That means if you take this point, this point is, if you from our observation, it's quite clear, it's somewhat clear that this point is nearer to red rather than to blue. And if you take this point is nearer to red rather than to blue. Okay, obviously the distance calculation need to be done. Now we'll just use the same hack which we followed previously. I'll just draw the perpendicular line, okay, between the center of the points, and you can see here this point and this point, this point and this point, they are changing the position, they are changing the I mean to say they are far away from blue rather than to red. So there is a reassignment taken place. Okay, there is a reassignment taken place. You can see here, when I place a centroid in the new position, the distance from this point to this point, and if you calculate the distance from this point to this point and this point to this point, obviously the distance is nearer to this. And from our theorem also, it is also quite clear that if you draw the perpendicular line, obviously the points which are to the left side will be nearer to blue category, to the right side will be nearer to red category. So there is a reassignment taken place. So you can see the reassignment. So these 2 points belongs to red category, and this point which is there here belongs to blue category. So obviously there is a reassignment taken place. Now what happens when there is a reassignment? Go to step number 4. Compute and place a new centroid. Okay, so once there is a reassignment taken place, so compute and place a new centroid of each cluster. Okay, so again we have to compute the centroids. What are the blue points you're having and what are the red points we're having after the reassignment? Okay, we have to project it. So just for our understanding, we have to project all the, we just project all the points and compute the centroid. So this will be a centroid for the red category, and this is the new centroid for blue category. Okay, so it's an iterative process, guys. Okay, this whole is an iterative process. We have seen that cycle over there, right, at the bottom. So if it is not, go to step number 4. Okay, so we have placed the new centroids, and these are the new centroids. Again, once you got the new centroids, you have to check if there is any reassignment taking place or not. Okay, so if you see here, again, if you draw this perpendicular line, so you can see there is a reassignment taking place, and there is only one reassignment taking place. So if there is any reassignment, you have to go to step number 4, that is compute and place a new centroid. After making this as blue, okay, and if you again compute the new centroid, this will be a centroid position, this will be a centroid position. Okay, so this iterative process completes until and unless we get there is no reassignment taken place. Okay, according to the theory, this keeps on happening until there is no reassignment taken place. I hope you have understood the word reassignment. Okay, so you can see there is a reassignment. Okay, reassignment is nothing but the distance from one centroid to other centroid varies. I mean to say, previously it was nearer to it, but now it was different for the same centroid. Okay, so there is a reassignment taking place, finding out the new centroid. Okay, so you can see here, from here in this step, there is no reassignment taking place. When you draw a centroid, all the blues are blue, all the reds are red. Okay, reassignment is nothing but, guys, reassignment is nothing but, in this scenario, see, in this step, reassignment is, see, when you calculate the, previously it was this point belongs to blue category, this point belongs to red category. Okay, but once the centroid is being changed, this blue point is nearer to red but far away from blue. Okay, so that is reassignment, right? Okay, this point also, if you see here, this point is nearer to blue but far away from red. Okay, but it is categorized as red, so there should be a reassignment. So we have to reassign this red as blue, we have to reassign this blue as red. That is nothing but a reassignment. Okay, so we keep on computing it until there is no reassignment. Okay, and so once we got there is no reassignment, then we form the final clusters. So this is one cluster and this is one cluster. Is it clear? Okay, is it clear, guys, on the charts? So once this final thing, once there is no reassignment, okay, then we can finalize them as this belongs to blue cluster, blue cluster, this belongs to red cluster. Now, so it is not that simple now, because there are some other constraints or some other things coming up which makes things a bit tough. Okay, so we'll see what are those. One of the first problems which comes in k-means clustering, problems of random installation in k-means plus plus. Okay, so as I've said in the first step, I mean in the second step, randomly initialize the k centroids. Okay, so what happens when you randomly initialize the k centroids? Okay, what happens? What are the problems which you face when you randomly place your centroids? Okay, so we are going to see that once. Okay, so for example, say consider this is your data set which is being there, and the scatter plot is drawn with next to next to, and these are the data points which are having. And for as of now, just consider k equal to 3. Okay, k equal to 3 clusters. Okay, so well, obviously it is from our observation itself, it is quite clear that so this belongs to one cluster, this belongs to one more cluster, this belongs to one more cluster. The three clusters are clearly visible to us. You can just see that. So these are all having the similar features. These are all having similar features. These are all having similar features. Okay. So if you see here, if I place the centroids in these positions like this, okay, you might be getting the correct clustered correct three clusters. Okay. If you place the centroids in these positions, you might be getting the correct clusters. Okay. But okay. So but what if we had a bad random installation in the sense, as I've said, the word itself random, right? So random in the sense you can just place it anywhere in the two-dimensional space. You can just place it anywhere. So I'll just place the centroid somewhere like this. So to the same data set. So we'll just perform the same steps which we had. I'll just place the centroids like this. Two centroids here, one centroid here. Okay. Now what is the next step after this? We have to find the uh, nearest point. Okay, so using the same theorem, we just find out. So these are all the points which are nearer to it. For suppose, so these are all the final results of it. Okay, I got something like this. Okay, but if you remember, are these the clusters which are being formed from our observation? No, right? If you see here, this is the clustering which need to be formed. Okay, these are the clusters which are being formed because of bad random installations. But if you see here, this is the actual clusters which need to be formed. Okay, so that's the problem with the random installation. Okay, now how you're going to do that? That's what. So these both are not equal. Okay, both the clustering, the outputs are not equal. Okay, so in this scenario, we are going to use an algorithm called k-means plus plus. So the solution for it is k-means plus plus. Okay. So this k-means plus plus helps us in identifying the positions of the centroids. Okay. K-means plus plus algorithm in the backend helps us in finding out the finding out the positions of the centroids in the initial stages of your k-means clustering. K-means plus plus helps us in finding out the centroid positions in your data set. Okay, so though there is a lot of mathematics involved in that to find out how these centroids are being placed, but for this intention's sake, I'll just help say that k-means plus plus is a solution for finding out the positions of your centroids. Okay, so hope the step is clear. So instead of random installation, we'll be using k-means plus plus. Okay, in our when you are doing the programming part also, you will be getting to know that we'll be using this k-means plus plus parameter for the installation of your centroids. Okay, now this is one problem. Now the most important step, how to find the right number of clusters. Most of you might be wondering, you have taken k equal to 2 in one instance, you have taken k equal to 3, k equal to 4, like that. How you going to know whether you have taken the right number of clusters or not? Okay, so to help us with that, to help or to get that problem solved, we are going to use a metric called WCSS. We are going to use a metric called, or if an equation, or you can just call it as a formula called WCSS, within cluster sum of squares. We're going to use a metric called WCSS, within cluster sum of squares within cluster sum of squares. Okay, so first, it's not that gigantic. If you see the formula, it is just the summations. Okay, if you understand it, it's quite simple. So WCS is equal to, this is the formula if you're having three centroids. Okay, the summation of pi in cluster 1 in the sense point in cluster 1. Okay, the distance from that point to, suppose if you see, this is the cluster 1 cluster. Okay, point in cluster 1 in the sense this is the point in cluster 1, right? The distance between that point and the cluster. Okay, and from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, all these points we are going to take summation of it. You can see square of it. Okay, summation of it. Okay, point in cluster 1. Okay, PIO in cluster 1. I'll tell you, you'll get to know that so what, how you're going to know cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3. You'll get to know all these things. Just wait, just have a small, let's have some patience on it. So WCSS is equal to, so this is point in cluster 1, this is the formula of it. Point in cluster 2, distance from point in cluster 2 to centroid 2, from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, here to here. Okay, and summation of point in cluster 3. Okay, if you're having three clusters, the formula is this. If you're having four clusters, summation of point in cluster 4, distance from point to cluster 4 whole square. Okay, so C1, C2, C3, C are nothing but your centroids of cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3. Pi is nothing but the data point of respective cluster. Okay, now just for understanding, we'll just take a glance of this WCSS. Okay, so just remember the formula. Okay, and now we'll see how the k value can be found. We're going to use the same criteria of WCSS, but in a different way. Okay, we're going to see that. Now, just consider, guys, obviously clustering, when I say clustering, so there can be, what is the minimum number of clusters that can be formed? Anyone on the charts? Yeah, obviously minimum number of clusters can be formed is 1. What are the maximum number of clusters that can be formed? What is the maximum number of clusters that can be formed on the charts? What are the maximum number of clusters that can be formed? Anyone for any data set? Yeah, very good, Supriya. N number of data points. Suppose if you're having 100 data points, 100 clusters can be formed. Each point can also act as cluster. Okay. Now we'll just see that scenario. One scenario and infinite scenario. N number of clusters scenario. Okay. So if you see here, so if you consider a data set, the same data set which you're having, just consider one cluster. The minimal number of clusters, one cluster. Okay. If you take one cluster, okay, so for the whole data set, if you take one cluster, the formula would be for WCS will be point in cluster 1, distance from point in cluster 1 whole square. So that means from here to here, from here to here, all the distances need to be taken. Suppose you're having some 5 units. So 5 square plus 4 square plus 7 square plus 8 square, like that. Okay. So will the WCS value will be high or low on the charts? When you take one cluster, will the WCS value will be high or low? Obviously high, because you can see here, if you take the centroid position here, you're having the distance something like 8 units, 7, 9 units, 6 units, and the square of it. Obviously, the WCS will be high. So since the distance is high, the sum of all the distance between those points, these points is obviously high. Okay. Now, this is with one cluster. Okay. What if we are having two clusters on the data set? What if we are having two clusters on the data set? Okay. Yeah. So suppose if it displays by using k-means plus plus, so k-means plus plus has given some two clusters. Okay. So if you see here, these are the two clusters which are being formed. Okay, it's cluster 1 and cluster 2. Okay. So when you calculate the WCSS for cluster 1 cluster 2, so will the WCS value will be high or low when compared to cluster 1, when compared to only one cluster? Will the WCS value will be high or low when compared to only one cluster. Obviously, it's quite obvious because you see here, from here to here, the distance is 2 units, 1 unit, 3 units, 4 units square of it. And from here to here, the distance will be less. Okay, even if you do the summation of two clusters, the distance will be less when compared to the previous one. Okay, okay. So obviously, WCSS will be low when compared to only one cluster. Okay, it compared to only one cluster, the WCS value will be low. Okay, now in the same way, if you use three clusters, if you're having three clusters, will the WCS value be low or high when compared to two clusters? Will the WCS value will be low or high when compared to two clusters? If you're having three clusters, okay, if you, in the next step, if you take three clusters, WCS value will be low or high when compared to the previous cluster, previous two clusters. Obviously, low, because when you increase the number of clusters, the distance between the points in the clusters will be minimum, and the WCS value will also be minimum. So if you take three clusters, the WCS value will be minimum when compared to the previous two positions. Now, from this, what you can interpret from this, what you can interpret, when you increase the number of clusters, WSS value will be decreasing. Okay, now just tell me guys, the final question, what if you're having n number of clusters, what will be the WCS value? If you're having n number of clusters, what will be the WCSS value? On the charts, if you're having n number of clusters, what will be the WCSS value? Very good, Yamni, it will be 0. Okay, it will be 0 because if you're having n number of clusters, what is the n number of clusters? This single point is a cluster, this single point is also a cluster. The point is the same, the cluster is also same, the distance will be 0. The summation of all the zeros is nothing but 0. Okay, so in that way, if you conclude that, so maximum number of clusters that can be formed is the number of data points which are present in the data set. Okay, so for that, WCS will be 0. Okay, so it's quite now you are able to interpret that if you increase the number of clusters, WCS value will be decreasing. Okay, now when will be the WCS value high? On the charts, when will be the WCS value maximum? When you're having only one cluster, then the WCSS will be maximum. Okay, now if you see here, with this uh, WCS value and the number of clusters, when you plot a graph, okay, when you plot a graph between this WCSS value and the number of clusters, okay, number of clusters on the x-axis and WCSS value on the y-axis, if you plot a graph, see the visualization, see the observation of this. If you plot a graph, okay, so for one cluster you got something around 8,000. For two clusters, the WCSS is something around 3,000. For three clusters, you got 10,000. Four clusters, something like this, something like this. Okay. Now, what is the optimal number of cluster? Okay. How you're going to find the optimal number of cluster? So this method we are going to find is called elbow method. Okay. So the criteria which is going to use is WCSS. The method is called elbow method. According to elbow method, so if you see here, from 8,000, from cluster 1 to cluster 2, there is a drastic change from 8,000 to 3,000. Okay. And from cluster 2 to cluster 3, there is a drastic change from 3,000 to 1,000. From 3, not that much amount, from that is nothing but from something around 850 or 900. Okay. So, and also you can see, according to elbow method, where we got the elbow shape. If you take your hand, the elbow, right, you know, right? So if you take the elbow shape, wherever you got that elbow shape, that point we are going to consider it as the optimal cluster value, k value, optimal k value. Okay, so according to this, what is the optimal value, guys? According to this graph, what is the optimal value? 3. Okay, so you can see here, so even though if the elbow shape is not formed, the one of the interpretation is when there is not that much amount of drastic change from one cluster to another cluster, the previous cluster is considered your optimal cluster, optimal k value. Okay, so this point here you can see from here to here, no that much, there is not much amount of drastic change from here to here, from here to here there is not that much amount. So this is a flat line going on. Okay, but from here to here there is a drastic change, right? Okay, that's why this point is considered as, or this cluster is your final k value. Okay, uh, see, it's not an elbow shape. Proper elbow shape will be from here the drastic decrease happen, I mean to say the decrease happens in the flat way. Okay, so if you just compare it with your elbow the same way, so from here to here there is much amount of drastic change. From here to here there is a drastic change, but from here to here there is not much amount of drastic change. This point is going to be your optimal cluster value. Okay, so we are going to, for our we are going to take a data set and we are going to use this elbow method to find the k value, and using that k value we are going to form this clusters. So is it clear? Did you understand k means clustering, guys, on the charts? Is it clear? So once we got the k value, obviously the same previous steps which were done. Okay, the same thing, which is nothing but so once we got the k value, then all these things are same. The first step we have done right now. So this is nothing but the first step, right? So choosing the number of k of clusters. So we got k equal to 3 according to the data set. Same thing happens, and these all things keep on progressing until we reach uh, there is no reassignment taking place. Okay, but actually, guys, actually this is the theory part of it. But in the actual practical part, you will not get exactly separated out. The clusters will not be exactly separated out like this. You see reassignment. Okay, you can see this kind of reassignment won't happen in actual in practice. Okay, because the reason for that is obviously the data you may not be getting that much amount of accurate clustering happen. Okay, so but how we are going to limit it? We are going to limit the number of iterations. Okay, we are going to limit the number of iterations. After these many iterations, what are the clusters which are being there? Those will be your final clusters. Okay, so in practice you may not be getting exact separation of one cluster to other cluster, but as I've said, it's an iterative process, right? We are going to limit the number of iterations. We're going to give the number of iterations. Based on the iterations, once the iterations are done, what are the cluster positions which were there, those will be your final cluster positions. Okay, so hope this is clear. Okay, I'll just roll over the slides which were there. Okay, so that you'll just have a small glance on it, and you'll get a total idea of the whole k-means clustering. And after that, we'll just see how to do it in a practical approach. Okay, insertions. Okay, so problem is solved of random cluster randomization using, I mean random installation using k-means plus plus. It's a problem which we face when you randomly install the points, data install the centroids. Okay, so using k-means plus plus, we're going to handle that, and using WCSS, we're going to build this elbow graph, and we're going to find the optimal clusters. Okay, yeah. So next, so can you just open your Jupyter notebooks? I'll just give you a data set. Go to that link and download the data set. Just a minute, I'll just share that. Share my screen. So create a new Jupyter file. Just give the name as elements clustering. Download the dataset from here, tinyurl.com slash k-means hyphen sorry sb hyphen k-means data. So you'll be getting this kind of a data set. Okay, mall customer.csv. Just download the data set. We'll see that. Download the data set. It's already there. Okay, so just download the data set. I've just given the link here. Okay, just see on the scope, you are able to see my screen. Okay, so in this, go to this URL and download it. Download the data set. Okay, so once you have downloaded it, I'll just import the packages. Import numpy as np as np. Import pandas as pd. Import plot dot pyplot as plt. So import the packages. Okay, so once the packages are imported, first sorry. So first import the data set. Okay, load the data set. So I placed the same. I placed that mall customer.csv file in the in my Jupyter directory itself. Okay, and see here we're having it here. Okay, you know, right? It's quite obvious as of now. So data set equal to pd dot read underscore csv of mall customer.csv. Okay, so if you see the data set first of all, we'll discuss about the data set. So in the data set, you can see here, it's kind of just consider a small shopping mall has or a shop a big shop owner is maintaining his all kind of a data, okay, who are their customers data, okay, something like each customer is given with an ID, and it is gender actually, okay, gender, age, and their respective annual kind of a survey, okay, age, annual income, and spending score. So here, that a mall shop, the or a person who owns the mall, he has come to one of the machine learning engineers. Okay, something he wants to know to which people to target. Okay, or to which people to give more number of ads, or which people to give discounts. Okay, so he wants to know which people need to be targeted. Okay, so for that we need to cluster. These are all the features there which are there, okay, within. So we need to find a group of which group of people need to be targeted, which group of people need not be targeted, okay, group of people need to be focused a lot, or to whom we have to send more discount offers or something like that. We need to give offers on festivals. Okay, they just want to know the group, the clusters of people. Okay, so according to the data set, it's quite clear that so gender, age, annual income, and spending score. Okay, so these are all the features which are having. You don't have any output here, as I've said. You need to just form clusters based on the data which is being given to you. Okay, so here customer ID, gender, age, annual income, and spending score. Okay, so uh, these are the features which are having. Okay, so for ease of us to understand this k-means clustering, I'll just consider two features so that it will be easier for you to visualize it also. Okay, and I'll also tell you how to do the more number of features also. Okay, as of now, I'm going to take annual income and spending score. I'm going to take annual income and spending score as a two features to form the clusters. Okay, I'm not saying that age should not be considered or gender should not be considered. Customer ID is obviously cannot be considered because it is just some number over there. Okay, we need not consider customer ID because customer ID in any way is not used for our grouping or for finding out the similarities of the features. Okay, we need not require customer ID. Okay, gender, age, annual income, and spending score are four parameters which we can consider. Okay, but for our ease of understanding of k-means clustering and to see the visualization, two-dimensional visualization, I'm going to consider annual income and spending score initially. Okay, and after that I'll just tell you how to include age and how to include gender. You can just do it as a kind of your internal task. Okay, so it's quite similar to it, but for the visualization point of view, I'm going to use annual income and spending score, okay, as my two features, x1 and x2 features. Okay, guys, one point you have to remember, I'm my sklearn version, because some of you might be getting different results because of the scikit-learn version, but better check the version once. Sorry, because all this k-means clustering or any algorithm, if most of the algorithms which are then in your machine learning are in your scikit-learn itself. So I'm having this version of scikit-learn. Just want to tell you that. Okay, I'm having 0.22.1 because it might some of because of the version also the results might vary. Okay, so finally you might ask what might be the reason. So if you're getting your results different from what I'm getting, the reason might be the version. If you bring it to the same version, you'll get the same results. Okay, yeah. So first of all, first we'll separate out our required features. So I said annual income and spending score are my required features as of now. Okay, for instance, I'm just taking annual income and spending score. Based on annual income and spending score, I'll be forming features. Okay, so, I'll just take x equal to, I'm going to use iloc here, dataset dot iloc of colon comma So if I want all the column, all the values, all the rows, but I want only annual income and spending score. Okay, so this is 0th column, 1, second, third, fourth. Okay, I'm starting from 3 to the end, 3 column. Okay, so you can use any number different ways to separate out your variables. Okay, I'm just using it as I love, and I'm going to convert them into numpy arrays. To convert your pandas data frame into numpy arrays, you're going to use dot values. So this is my x. Okay, nothing but your annual income and spending score. So hope spending score, guys. You might be wondering what is spending score. Spending score is nothing but based on your purchases. You might be getting these points, right? Okay, if you take Big Bazaar or any other mart, you will be getting these points, right? So based on those points, your spending scores can be. They are just grouped in range, scaled in into 1 to 100. Okay, so these are your annual incomes, and these are the annual incomes, and these are the spending scores. Okay, so first we'll just plot the graph between these two parameters. So I'm going to use scatter plot initially to check how your data points are being scattered. So plt dot scatter of x of colon comma 0. 0 represents colon comma 0 represents 0th index. Okay, colon comma 0 comma x of colon comma 1. So 0 is nothing but your annual income. Y is this 1 is nothing but your spending score. We plot the graph. So you can see this is a graph which is being plotted between your x and y parameters. Your annual income and spending score. Okay. So in this cluster, in these with the data points which are there here, we need to form the clusters. How many clusters can be formed? So just tell me, guys, how are you going to form the clusters? How are you going to find out the clusters? How are you going to find out how many numbers of clusters are there? Yeah, you're going to calculate WCSS. It is not WCCS, it is WCSS. Okay, but according to the theory, we call it as a WCSS. Okay, but according to the what do you call? According to this package of scikit-learn, there is a different name given to it, which is called inertia. Okay, yeah, obviously the whole method process we call it as elbow method. Okay, here WCSS is a theoretical way of explain understanding it. Okay, WCSS, but in terms of package, WCSS is called as inertia. Okay, I'll tell you where it comes. So first of all, import the package. Import the package for k-means. So from sklearn dot cluster import k-means. K and M are capital. K-means. Okay, so if you just remember, even if you're going to find the number of clusters, am I audible now? Is it clear? I'm audible to all of you. Yeah, thank you. So even even if you want to find the number of clusters, or if you want to draw the elbow method, if you want to find the elbow method, if you remember in our slides, we need to find the WCSS for cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3, right? Cluster 4, cluster 5, like that. We have to find WCSS for all the clusters, and then we can draw the elbow graph. Okay, so if you remember, what is the criteria, what is the algorithm which is used for finding out the positions of k-means, I'm sorry, finding out the position of your centroids? What is the algorithm which is used for, yeah, which is used for finding out the positions of your centroids? K-means plus plus. Okay, even when you are trying to calculate the WCS also, if you are taking one cluster, where that one cluster need to be placed, that should also be known. That should also be known, right? Where that points one centroid need to be placed. So we're going to take the help of this help of k-means plus plus to position your centroids. Okay, so as of now, for instance, I'll just take a list. WCS is equal to, this is just a variable which you're going to use afterwards. Okay, yes, WCSS which you're going to use afterwards. Okay, now I'm going to iterate in a for loop. Okay, to find out all the WCS values for all the clusters. Okay, so for I in range 1 to 11. So I have taken only 1 to 11. I'll explain it. Okay, so for y in range 1 to 11, as you all know, y is 1 because the minimum number of clusters which can be formed is 1, and maximum can be n number of clusters. Okay, so but why I'm taking only limited one, I'm going to explain it. Okay, just create an object for this k-means. So k-means equal to k-means of, so this k-means object accepts some parameters. The one of the parameters is number of clusters. So n underscore clusters equal to, so since we are iterating in for loop, I'll just give it as I, comma init equal to, init is nothing but initialization, how you're going to initialize. So we're going to use k-means plus plus, k-means plus plus, comma random underscore state equal to 0. So for all of us to get the same results, we're going to use random underscore state equal to 0. Okay, so number of clusters init for installation of your centroids, random state equal to 0 for all of us to get the same results. Okay, so now I'm going to apply my data to this k-means object. So k-means dot, where is your data present, guys, in the chats? Where is your data present? Where is your data present? Anyone on the chat, where is your data present? Oh no, in x we have separated out, right? X contains the data. K-means dot fit of x. Okay, so what happens here? So in the iteration, see the iteration of what happens for I in range. So if you take the for loop, if you see the for loop here, I equal to 1 in the cluster, in number of clusters equal to 1. Okay, if 1 equal to 1 cluster, we are going to initialize using k-means plus plus. I'm going to place it in this k-means dot fit. Okay, so once you fit the value, so to get the WCSS value, so I'm going to use WCSS is my variable actually, dot append of k-means dot inertia underscore. Okay, so according to the algorithm, according to the scikit-learn package, so k-means the WCSS is calculated using the word inertia. Sorry, the spelling is wrong. INERTIA. 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 Okay, we can just make a small calculate WCSS. Okay, so WCSS dot append k-means dot inertia. Okay, so why I'm using this WCSS list here? The reason for that is, see, if you remembered, we need to draw a graph, right? Okay, so we have to take respective WCS values and the respective inertias or respective WCS values. Okay, so that's the reason. When you fit it, all the all these random points, all the points will be, sorry, one cluster which is being going to the, which is going to be present, will be fitted with the data set. Okay, and the respective inertia or WCS value will appended to this WCSS variable. Okay, so like that for 1 cluster, 2 cluster, 3 cluster, 4 cluster, 5 cluster till 10 clusters, level will not be considered. Okay, so the reason for taking only 11 as a range, because okay, even if you increase the number of clusters, if you have seen, the value keeps on decreasing and will be nearing to zero. Okay, so there is no use of performing that much amount on it. Okay, that's the reason. So we have just taken 1 to 10 clusters. So from 1 to 10 clusters where you might be getting the actual elbow shape. Okay, so if you're having a larger data set, you can also check it with more number of what do you call clusters. Okay, since we're having a smaller data set, okay, we can just check it with 10 clusters. Okay, so it's just a kind of trial and error. Okay, as of now I'm just taking it as 10 clusters. Okay, now I'll just plot the graph. We got the WCS, we'll be getting the WCS values for all the 10 clusters. Now we're going to plot the elbow graph. So PLT dot plot of plot range 1 to 11 comma WCSS, the respective WCS values. You can just give the title and all, LT dot label number of clusters respective WCS values. So now if you plot the graph, just tell me guys, what is the what is the optimal cluster position on the charts? You cannot have 4.5 like that. Okay, it's actually 5. You can see here between 4 and 6. Okay, you can see there is a large, from here to here there's a large variation, from here to here large variation, but from here to here there is not that much amount of large variation. So your cluster value is 5, number of clusters is 5. Okay, so now once we got the number of clusters, okay, now we are going to apply the same thing with the given cluster value. We're going to find our cluster values. I mean, we're going to find the which data point belongs to which cluster. Okay, so clear guys till here how to find the WCS value, I mean how to find the K value using WCSS and the number of clusters. Actually we have already fitted this X, right? That's the reason you're getting the error. Okay, yeah, so now once we got the K value done, once we got our value ready, okay, the next step is applying that K value on our data set. Okay, so K means I'm going to take the same object again. K means K means of n underscore clusters, n underscore cluster equal to equal to, so we got 5, right? So I'll just take it as 5 comma init equal to k means plus plus comma random underscore state equal to 0. Okay, k means to get that cluster positions, to get our cluster values, k means dot fit underscore predict of x. I'm going to store it in y means. Let's say variable y means. Right, y means. Okay, so this y means will give you which data point belongs to which cluster. Okay, yeah, random underscore state will be giving us the same results for all of us, will be giving the same results. Okay, that's the reason. Okay. So it's just a kind of a caution parameter to let us get the same results. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, this is the object, right? Km, small k means. Let's just check it once. On the object, we have to apply this predict method. Okay, you can see here. So total, what if you check our x dot shape? Just a minute. Just check the x dot shape here. Add a cell above and just check the x dot shape. We having 200 records. Okay, so these are all the 200 records respective cluster values. Okay, if you use y means dot plus plus or y means dot shape, 200. Okay, so for these 200 records which are there, the respective cluster values, that means the first record belongs to third cluster, second record belongs to first cluster. Okay, like that. Okay, if you want to just check it here also, print x. Okay, so this 1539 belongs to third cluster, 1581 point belongs to one cluster, 16.6 belongs to 3 cluster, 1677, that means 16 what do you call 16,000 annual income and 77 spending score. This belongs to first cluster, like that. So if you're having a different what do you call uh, version of your scikit-learn, okay, so you might be getting some kind of different result. Okay, if you're having lower version of scikit-learn, you might be getting different result. Okay, that's the reason if you use that 0.22.1 version, then you'll be getting the this kind of results. Okay, so once we got this, now we're going to plot the graph. Okay, so if you want to know the, so before plotting the graph, if you want to know the centroids, where are the centroids placed, the positions of the centroids, you can also get the positions of the centroids by using k-means dot cluster underscore centers. K-means dot cluster underscore centers underscore. These are, since we remember you got 5 centroids, right? So these are the 5 centroid positions. These are the 5 centroid positions. Second, third, fourth, fifth. Just a minute. Okay, so once we got the centroids, okay, now we can just plot the centroids along with the data points which were there in their respective cluster categories. Okay, so now we'll just plot the graph. So PLT dot scatter of. So what I'm going to do is a small syntax here. Okay, so I'll just take all the, if you take these points, I'll just take all the zeroth indexes of this X which are having cluster number as 0. Okay, and I'm going to take all the uh, uh, 1th positions of the values for having cluster value as 1. Okay, and I want to plot them. In the same way, I'm going to take all the values which are having cluster value as 1, cluster value as ones. Okay, in the x-axis and y-axis, I'm going to plot with some different colors so that it will be easier for you to visualize it. The PLT dot scatter of x of y means, where you got y means equal to 0, the respective 0th index or 0th column. Okay, comma x of y means equal to 0, where which one got 0 as their cluster number, their 1th position. I'm going to give, so S is something called size of the dots. The scatter plot will be getting the dots, right? The size of the dots, let's give it as something, right, 100. Okay, which defines the size of the scatter plot, the dots. Okay, comma color equal to green. I'll also give label equal to cluster 1. Okay, the same way, the same thing, is copy it. So x of y means equal to 1. 1 represents 1th cluster, 0 represents 0th index, the respective 0th index, and their 1 clusters respective 1th index. Okay, size as 100 and color, let's give it as red. Let's give it as cluster 2. Same thing, paste it here. Y means equal to 2, which belongs to cluster 2, color blue, cluster 3. Same, cluster 3, K1 with the cluster 4. Hope it is clear. Okay, so based on which the data points which are having 0th cluster, their respective 0th index, 1th cluster, the respective 0th index. So to plot a scatter plot, you require x and y positions. Okay, this is my x positions with 0th in 0 clusters, their y position 0 clusters. Let's give it as cluster 1. Okay, along with that, I'll also sorry, here 4. Along with that, I'll just plot the centroids also, the centroid positions. We got the centroid positions, right? I'll also plot the centroids. So PLT dot scatter of k means dot cluster underscore centers their respective zeroth index colon comma 0 comma k-means dot cluster centers of colon comma 1. Okay, so just to differentiate from your normal cluster values and normal data points and your centroids, I'll just increase the size of the points to 300, the size of the centroid points to 300. You can use any number over there. Okay, just to increase the, to show some variation between your data points and the centroid, I'll just increase this as equal to 100 comma color equal to magenta label equal to centroids. Okay, so with this you can see here, these are the cluster values and their respective colors and their respective x and y coordinates. Okay, I'll just use legend. So you can see here, so the five clusters which are being formed. So this is belongs to one cluster, this belongs to one cluster, one cluster, one cluster, one cluster. So you can see the size here. These are the centroid positions. These are the centroid positions. Okay, and these are the clusters which are being formed. So this whole this is one cluster. You see red, this belongs to second cluster. Okay, and this belongs to blue, third cluster. Yellow, fifth cluster. Cyan, fourth cluster. Green, first cluster. Okay, so from here you can just interpret that these people who are there, these x positions are uh, your salaries. X is your salaries and y are your spending scores. X are your salaries and y are your spending or your data sets spending scores. Okay, so this blue color cyan people, the color which are having blue color cyan, these people are having less spendings, less salaries as well as less spending score. Okay, these people are having less salaries and less spending score. Okay, and these people they are having less salaries and high spending scores. Less salaries and high spending, this red color group, this 40 to 80 or in between the range of 40 to 75, these people are having average spending scores, average salaries and average spending scores. This group of people are having high spending scores, sorry, high salaries but less spending scores. Okay, and this group of people are having high salaries and high spending scores. If you say which people need to be concentrated, okay, so these people can be concentrated because they're having high salaries but they're having less spending scores. Okay, so these people can be sent with offers so that their spending scores can also be increased. These are average people. Even if you give uh, high salaries, even if you give some any kind of offers or anything like that, their spending scores will be average. Okay, this group of people, there is no need any kind of offers as they are having high salaries and high spending scores. Okay, so in this way we can just perform the cluster. In this way we can just categorize your data set and we can just form the clusters. Okay, and get to know that which people can be targeted according to this data set. Okay, now some might ask, sir, why not use age and why not use gender and all. Okay, so if you want to use, guys, if it's kind of a small task, if you you can just do it. Okay, so include age also. How to include age? Just the same way. Here, instead of using 3 colon, use 2 colon. Okay, age will also be included, but you may not be getting the scatter plot, because scatter plot can be drawn between only in a two-dimensional space. If having 3 parameters, it becomes three-dimensional. Okay, that's the reason I didn't show you that. Okay, and so sklearn.clusters. So here you will be getting the cluster values of it. You may not be getting, you will be, whenever you consider the parameters, 3 parameters, you'll be getting the cluster values of it, but you may not be you'll be getting the centroid positions, but you may not be getting the visualization using this. Okay, as it becomes a three-dimensional visualization, you will not be getting it. Okay, any doubts with this? Yeah, we can also use Anaconda IDE. Okay, Anaconda or Python IDE. The reason for using Jupyter Notebook is it is a little bit interactive, as well as you'll be able to understand each and every line. Okay, but when it comes to Spider IDE or any other Python IDEs, okay, you if you come if you take normal Python IDE, you have to execute the code at once. You will not be able to get the insight field. Okay, with Spider also you can just run it. Okay, so no problem with that. With Spider also you can use whole program. Okay, make sure that you don't give any kind of inundations in between. Okay, unnecessary inundations. It might lead to your problems with the code. Okay, so anyone having any doubts, you can just ask on the chats. So if you want to add additional packages and modules in Jupyter Notebook, just yeah. So if you want to install Jupyter any package to your Jupyter Notebook, okay, so you can use Anaconda prompt. Okay, if you have installed your Anaconda IDE, okay, just press your Windows button and type search for Anaconda prompt. There you'll be getting the window where you can install the packages. So you can use pip install for Python installation package. Obviously, you can use pip as well as conda for installing your packages. PIP or conda for installing your packages. They will be automatically reflected in your Jupyter Notebook. Okay, if they are not reflected, try to restart your kernel if it's reflected in your Jupyter Notebook. Any doubts? Anyone? Hope the whole process of gaming clustering is clear. Okay.
So who is that? Missed previous 3 sessions in total 5. Okay, so we will give anyway. So I will give a link now itself in the chat, so you can go through the recordings. Just give me a minute.
And if you want to access the code also, this code, okay, if you want to access it, I will be sharing you the link here. Okay, just go to that link and you can just download this code. Okay, I'm just pasting it here. So you can just use that link. Small typo reported. And
So if you see, guys, there is a ping I have given recordings like ML workshop 1 recording, 2 recording, 3 recording, and 4 recording. bit.ly/, ML workshop 4 recording. So if you really observe it, only numbers are the difference. The format is same. Even this session also will be ML workshop 5 recording. It will be. You can check by end of day tonight in this link itself. Through this link itself.
so
Okay. So
yeah, anyone having
uh,
any doubts, you can just post on the chat. Okay, so the gaming session is done.
okay. So Surya, we are done.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. Fine, guys. So if you have questions, please put up, or else we are done for the day. Don't miss the last session. That will be, on little more advanced algorithms. So and that is going to be the last session of the series. Fine. So please don't miss it. And this recording will be like, just as I have sent you the link, right? ML Workshop 5 recording. You just search for this link after 3 hours or 4 hours of time, you will be getting the recorded version of a current session. Okay. So thank you all. We'll catch up in the next session, next Thursday. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thanks, Surya.
Yeah.
I'm ending the session now. Thank you.